You are now watching Zach Lesage PTCG. Let's get it! Yo, what's poppin' Pokemon peeps? Today we're going to be covering a Battle Styles set review. So I've already done a set review before on this set, but that's before we knew every single card in the set, and I've had some more time to soak in and think about these cards. Hopefully this review is helpful for you upon Battle Styles release week and efforts to get everyone hyped up and ready for this set. So these are going to be my honest opinions on the cards, whether you like it or not. I'm going to bring it in hot. Hopefully you like some of the editing that I've done in this video, done a lot with overlays and stuff, so really hoping you like it all. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. If you're looking for any of the cards on release day, go to ptcgostore.com, plug in code ZLesage5. You can find that in the description along with my recommended cards to pick up for this set, whether it's in real life or online. So hopefully you all enjoy this video. Let's jump into it because it's going to be a bit of a long one. Alright. So here we have Weepinbell. Its ability Dangerous Mucus is why it's making this list of potentially playable cards and more. So when you play this card down from your hand, you evolve one of your Pokemon, you may make your opponent's active Pokemon poisoned and burned. So I think poison and burn are pretty decent special conditions, especially with Scoop Up Net being in the format. I could see Weepinbell being an appropriate damage modifier, or if there's any other Pokemon or things that kind of benefit off of special conditions, Dangerous Mucus definitely seems like it's possible. So Weepinbell seems okay. It's not great, it's not anything, but it's okay. Our first V Pokemon of the set review, Kricketune V, seems like it could be one of these other Dedenne Crobat type cards. Spiritual reprint with exciting stage of the Oranguru with Instruct from Sun and Moon, so being able to draw cards until you have 3 cards in your hand from anywhere. But if it's from the active spot, you could draw until you have 4. I think in the future this could be good, and it might take a little bit to see this card see played in decks, but I think once we rotate out cards such as Dedenne GX, Jirachi from Team Up, Kricketune V might be the next up kind of draw supporter card, or kind of like just support card in general. So I kind of like Exciting Stage a lot as an ability. Might not necessarily be now, but it does get a pretty decent rating, given it the gigantic wink face. And I mean, my rating system is just going to be faces and funny things and all that stuff. So take it for as you wish. I think this is definitely one of the better cards in the set. An Exciting Stage looks like it's going to see some play at some point in its lifespan. Next up, we got Cherrim, and it's really here because of its ability Spring Bloom. So as often as you like during your turn, you attach a grass energy card from your hand from one of your Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box. So V, Pokemon GX, etc. So if it has a thing where it's like draw extra prize cards, Prism Star, things like that. Of course, we're going to wait for the official ruling on what a rule box is and is not. But this is basically a powering up single prize card Pokemon. For the most part. That being said, the Tapu Bulu in this set would be really cool. I'm sure that there's got to be some other Pokemon like Maractus that could be very cool to power up. Now, my issue is not a lot of Pokemon that are non-rule box Pokemon are extremely powerful or take grass energies to attack. It doesn't have to be a grass Pokemon, so do keep that in mind. So maybe Cherrim could be some kind of weird single prize card box, maybe with Aurora energy in the future, something. But I think Spring Bloom's just like, it's an awesome ability. I just don't know where it's going to be very good immediately. So I think it's kind of hot. It's going to be played at some point in its life, at least I think so. But beyond that, I can't necessarily think of anything that's super playable day one. So we got Durant here, and if anyone has been playing Pokemon for a while, this is kind of a spiritual reprint of another Durant. For each Durant in play, you can discard the top card of your opponent's deck. I mean, Devour is not a bad deck out mechanic. We just don't really have too many other deck out mechanics. Sure, you could put Curse Shovel and other things on this Pokemon, but how are you going to make sure that you don't prize Durant? How are you going to make sure that you are able to Devour for victory? I think that we just currently don't have enough in this format, and that's why it's going to get neutral. The attack's not like extremely busted or anything like that. It seems appropriate for a deck out measure, and Devour could be cool at some point if we do get enough resources. And maybe I'm completely wrong on the card. These are my early thoughts on the deck or on the concept, and I think it's just okay. Here we got Tapu Bulu. Tapu Bulu is actually one of the better single prize card attacking Pokemon that's coming out of this set. Really looking here for its Nature's Judgment attack. So doing 80 plus 80 if you discard all energy attached to this Pokemon. This might be a natural pairing with something like Cherrim, also from the set. Now, it kind of seems to me like someone's first deck, or a deck that as a league leader or as a community leader you'd bring to league to help someone out learn the game. I don't necessarily think it's going to be super competitive. I mean, it's fine from a league at home team challenge kind of esque vibe. In terms of the utmost competitive viability, I don't necessarily think Nature's Judgment's going to get you all the way there. This could be a really niche grass type attacker if grass becomes a very viable type, but with cards like Cherrim being printed, I could see Tapu Bulu being very good in the future, just not necessarily right now. That's why it's going to get kind of more of a neutral rating. We'll see how Nature's Judgment really grows in future sets. So here we go. We got Flapple V. I think Flapple V is interesting. I like its Sour Spit attack doing 20 damage. And if you're ever in a position where your opponent's Pokemon can't switch, which I'll be honest, I don't necessarily see that being too big of a deal going forward. We did just reprint Escape Rope in this set. We do have Switch. Rapid Strike is going to be one of the most successful archetypes, or at least it's one of the most hyped archetypes out of this set. So that's Rapid Strike Urshifu. I could see a lot of decks having a way to get around Sour Spit, because if you get it to the active, you could kind of get around it. This card is, it's neutral for a V Pokemon. Most V Pokemon that evolve typically aren't amazing. This one's just going to get a neutral rating because it has some good things going for it. Wing Attack's not bad. Sour Spit's not bad. This card's kind of just like meh overall, but nothing outstanding on this one. So far out of everything that we see in this set, this is a card that I'm not super about. Of course, I'm omitting a lot of the kind of fluff cards that are in the set, but in terms of cards that might be playable or VMAXs or cards that typically are more important, this is really the first one to kind of get my sad review. I think that G-Max rolling is okay at best. Any attack that has the 250 minus typically isn't that viable. Most minus base attacks are not seeing a lot of success in this current format, or really haven't seen too much success. Sure, there's been a couple of them. I can't necessarily think of any coming to mind at this moment. I literally remember saying this during my last review, and my opinion hasn't really changed. I think that G-Max rolling's okay, and we need to find a good way to power this up. But 3 energies to do 250 seems like a worse Eternatus VMAX. Sure, typing could be fine. Fire is still a very popular type, and I think that's really where this deck's going to struggle. So maybe someone can prove me wrong and it's going to be the next Flapple VMAX, but this can go with a lot of the other grass VMAXs like Butterfree VMAX and kind of sit at the back of a binder. I'm probably not going to play this one, but we'll see. Next up is Victini V. Looking at the first fire-type Pokemon of the sets, I like that V Bullets can do a decent bit of damage going on your first turn. So if you're attacking with this and have an energy, sure, you could it's 60 damage is not a lot, but it could be 120 if you hit a Zacian V. Flare Shot could also knock out that Zacian V. So a simple Welder could just mean you winning the game for 2 energies and backing something up on the bench. Sure, there might be other attacking Pokemon like Heatran GX that can do more damage, but they don't evolve into Victini VMAX, and of course we're going to be covering that one next. So I think this is an interesting spot of the Victini Vs that you could add into your deck, because of course we have the one from Sword and Shield as well, and we'll get into that when we get into Victini VMAX right up now. We're going to start off with our first Flames card of this review. Spreading Flames, of course, being the same attack that we have for the Victini V that we have from Sword and Shield, but Max Victory, I know a lot of y'all are sleeping on this card. Doing 100 plus 120 for only 2 energies is great, because you don't really need too much to really chase your opponent's Pokemon down and knock them out. So similar to how Zacian V can just go for a 200-ish damage attack, knocking out Crobats, Dedennes, all these type of cards, Victini VMAX can definitely chase those Pokemon down too, with boss orders, things such as that, really hitting for a decent bit of damage. If you're not able to hit a decent bit of damage with this Pokemon, you could add other techs into your deck, such as Cramorant V, Reshiram and Charizard V or GX, all those good cards that you typically see in the Crescephalon and the Centiskorch VMAX decks. I think this card's going to be pretty hot, and it probably even gets better after rotation, because there's no more GX Pokemon, or at least there shouldn't be. It should all just be V and VMAX Pokemon. So hitting hard with Max Victory, very similar to Eternatus VMAX, but don't need all those Pokemon in play. I think this card's going to be amazing, and I'm super stoked for it. Emboar is going to be one of the more interesting cards in this review, and we're looking at it because of its ability Fighting Fury stance. So being able to do extra damage with your single strike Pokemon can be hot, especially if you pair this with the single strike Mustard card. Being able to summon an Emboar as a stage 2 into play with a supporter card can be amazing. Now, I don't necessarily know which Pokemon we want to power up with this. I don't necessarily think there's a deck that you could really make this work with day one. Maybe you can. In the past, we've had Yveltal, EX, Maxis, with Archeops or with Gallade, stuff like that have all seen success in tier 1 decks before. So Emboar is certainly one of those cards that I could see like having success. We just need to kind of let this card simmer and let more single strike Pokemon release, or really see where the metagame goes to see what numbers we're trying to hit. If we need to hit something and Fighting Fury Stance is an appropriate way to hit it, of course we're going to be playing it. Right now, I like playing the single strike Urshifu with Houndooms, so it's one of those things where we'll have to see exactly where the Houndooms take us and all that good stuff, and see how lists evolve. But I think the Fighting Fury Stance is kind of a hot attack or a hot ability, so we'll see some play in the future at some point. I'm very sure of that. Salazzle is one of those cards that could work with the Weepinbell that we've already seen in this review. Derisive roasting, that's a tough word to pronounce, don't judge me. Doing 90 damage for each special condition can be incredibly hot, no pun intended, because it is a fire type Pokemon. But you got to think about how you're going to be getting those in play. Weepinbell with Scoop Up Net is definitely a good way to be doing 180 for 2. This Pokemon can definitely abuse Twin Energy or Triple Acceleration Energy. It's really about getting that extra one beyond that, because how special conditions work, you can be poison, burned, and you have to have a choice between Confuse, Asleep, and Paralysis. So between those three, you could do 270 for 2 energies. How are you really getting that third one in play? So if there's something like Hypnotoxic Laser, I could see this card being hot in the future. But if there is not, I think this card's kind of like a middle tier kind of meme deck that we have going on. So it's cute. I'm going to give it neutral in case we do get something in the future, and 270 for 2 energies is busted on a stage 1. But if we don't get there, it's probably just a mid-tier card. This one I was almost not even sure if I wanted to include it on the list, and then I thought about it and I was like, well, you want to know what? In a world where burn is good, they don't recover from burn ever. And I mean, I guess I don't know how it works. I guess they continuously take the 20 damage, considering they never recover from burn. If burn works, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just continuously burn your opponent's Pokemon. And if you could add a bunch of burn damage to that, I could see Overheater being good. Bursting Inferno is terrible, but we'll have to see exactly if Overheater could see any success in the future. This card's like borderline terrible, but if Burn's good in the future, Centiskorch might be a little bit hot. Kingdra, I've kind of gone off on a lot of places and said that Kingdra is one of my favorite cards in this set. When your active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack, your opponent's Pokemon, you may move any number of water energy from that Pokemon to this Pokemon. So if you're able to continuously collect energies and just kind of build things up, maybe with having an Articuno in the front, Frostmoth on the bench, building up energies, you could attack with Kingdra after Kingdra after Kingdra, and can kind of just like get yourself in a position where you can move all those energies off of a Kingdra and just attack for Aqua Burst for a lot of damage. Is this going to be the next best deck? I'm honestly not sure. I'm a huge Kingdra fan with I got a tribal Kingdra tattoo up here. I mean, this Kingdra's got me my first invite to the World Championships. So of course I'm going to have a soft spot for Kingdra. Beyond that, it's one of those things where I think Kingdra's pretty cool. I think it's definitely playable, and I'm going to try my best to make it work. What are your thoughts on Kingdra? I think it's pretty nifty. Next up, we got Galarian Mr. Rime. They always make Galarian Mr. Rime such a funny card. Being able to use ball juggling, so you can discard any number of item cards that you have with the word ball in their name from your hands. So currently in our format, we have Quick Ball, we now have Level Ball, we have Great Ball, we have Pokeball. So I mean, you could discard a lot of ball type cards from your hand. This would work really well with the Yamper that we have in this set. I don't want to necessarily spoil that one, but ball juggling is a cool-ish attack that could do a decent bit of damage. It's kind of one of these like trend kind of Pokemon, kind of like the Cramorant, Aeroscuda, Barrascuda, whichever one. I always get those two fish mixed up combos where it's competitively fun. I think this would be a really good combo deck for someone a little bit younger in the game to be playing, and it would certainly be a fun deck, but I don't necessarily see how ball juggling is a viable option to hit over and over again, at least in our standard formats. Got one of the better cards in the set here, Octillery, with its ability, Rapid Strike Search. So searching your deck for a Rapid Strike card. This is a card that I was very close to putting on the fire, and it's one of those things where it's close between a fire and the smiley wink face. I think Rapid Strike is going to grow well with age as long as we continuously get Rapid Strike mechanics printed for the foreseeable future. And as far as I'm concerned, we're going to see a lot more Rapid Strike and Single Strike cards printed in the future. Being able to search them out can be absolutely amazing, and just making decks more consistent. The more options that we have, the better this card's going to get, and right now it's already not that bad, so I can imagine that it's only going to be amazing. Next up, we got Empoleon V. Empoleon V with its ability Emperor's Eyes. So as long as this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent's basic Pokemon in play have no abilities except for Pokemon with a rule box. So rule box Pokemon getting those abilities, it almost feels like Pokemon wants Zacian V to be one of the best, like just one of the best cards in formats. So you could shut off some cool stuff, but it has to be basic Pokemon. So this isn't going to shut off Decidueye. It's not going to shut off things like Obstagoon. Basic Pokemon abilities, I don't even know what you'd be able to shut off that'd be like super relevant. Things like Jirachi, just Jirachi Amazing Rare, stuff like that could be interesting. It's really like good here for Swirling Slice for 130 damage. This could be splashed into a Rapid Strike deck with Rapid Strike Energy because it does count as the water energies, and you can move that energy to one of your bench Pokemon. I think this could be good in an ADP deck, being able to swing for 260 or 320 against a Centiskorch deck, very similar to a Mawile, or Milotic V. So Empoleon V seems okay. Maybe this card's between neutral and the wink face, if I could ever give one, but it seems like it's going to be pretty okay during its lifespan. Our first thumbs down of this review is going to be Jellicent. So I mean, I don't know what that Jellicent up top is doing. It looks like it's became a little bit of skinny boy. Maybe it's getting pulled up by that fisherman in the background. The art's absolutely bizarre on this card, but its attack sediment sink, doing 10 times the amount of water energy cards in your discard pile. You gotta think, how much damage could that do? And in a case where you have 10 energies in your discard pile, which would be a lot by any standard, considering you do need 2 water energies to make this work, that would be 100 damage. Well, in the case where you have 20 water energies in your discard pile, Sediment Sink is still not doing that much. It's only 200 damage. You'd probably want to get like 350 damage worth, so 35 energies in your discard pile, and considering Jellicent has to evolve and it takes 2 energies to attack, I don't see that happening. I don't think you necessarily can fit 50 energies in your deck. So something like this is kind of what memes and dreams are made of. If someone ever makes this work, I don't even know how they add that. They probably have 100 cards in their deck. Jellicent is just pretty much trash. Starting off with our lightning type Pokemon, we got Luxray. So Luxray is pretty okay in terms of stage 2 single prize card Pokemon. Scar Strikes can be okay because it's doing what Houndoom V does, but considering Houndoom V never saw any play, I don't necessarily think we're going to see Scar Strikes hitting for a lot of damage. And Electro Step is like kind of okay, but Sniping 40, there's just too many overpowered Pokemon in this format, and this card's just not going to make the cuts. It's not terrible, or at least not as terrible as Jellicent, but it's not necessarily going to be crazy winning anytime soon, especially with its fighting type weakness. I couldn't imagine it going too far compared to all these Urshifu Pokemon coming out in this set. Starting with our first lightning type V Pokemon, Tapu Koko V. Tapu Koko V is also very similar to it's another Tapu Koko V that we have in format, I should say, because we do have the one that came out in Sword and Shield. Electro Ball here is fine. Spiral Thunder is pretty much what we're looking at for while we play this one over the other Tapu Koko V. We are only putting this card on this list because it does evolve into Tapu Koko VMAX. So that card does have some stuff going for it. Spiral Thunder, if you're able to power it up, which you can with an Electrode or a Tapu Koko Prism Star, you could do 20 plus 40 for each energy attached to all your opponent's Pokemon. So if you're in a scenario where your opponent has a bunch of energy in play, Spiral Thunder might be able to hit for a decent bit. That's why it's kind of getting neutral, because that's really the only effect that it's good for. So it's kind of like a niche in a Tapu Koko VMAX deck, which is not the best VMAX's decks that we have available. So it's cool, but it's not the best Tapu Koko V. Looking at the card that does evolve from that Tapu Koko V, we got Tapu Koko VMAX. So it's got max shock, 180 damage, and if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, their active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Considering I won the Players' Cup 2 with a Pikarom deck that focused on Raichu, Alolan Raichu GX, using Tandem Shock to paralyze my opponents every single turn was a vital strategy that brought me to victory. Of course, I'm going to see the parallel with max shock, paralysis, doing 180 damage, and I think just being able to do it all the time over and over, if you're behind on prize cards, sounds great, especially pairing it with Electrode from Vivid Voltage. So being able to knock out an Electrode, power up this Pokemon in the same vein sounds amazing. There are some aspects about this deck where it's weak to fighting. That might be a little bit sus in this format, considering this set is the one that brings us our Urshifu. But overall, if we're looking at this card in general, I think Tapu Koko VMAX seems quite playable. I feel bad giving this little Yamper the sad face rating, but its ball search ability, just being able to search a Pokeball, a Great Ball, or one of each from your discard pile into your hand, seems just okay. This seems like a card that was printed for the Galarian Mr. Rime deck, and that's why I'm going to give it, because at least you get back Great Ball. It seems okay in that sense. If your deck really needs to be able to get Great Ball back over and over, might be working in a scoop up net deck, or if Pokeball ever becomes super viable again. I think that ball search is really while we're looking at this card, and beyond that, there's really not much else to be looking at. Next up, we got Mimikyu V. Mimikyu V, I like its ability, because when you play this card from your hand onto your bench, you can prevent all damage done to Mimikyu V by attacks from your opponent's Pokemon until the end of your opponent's next turn. So I think its attack Dummy Doll, or its ability Dummy Doll, could be pretty okay, but I'm really looking at its Jealous Eyes, putting 3 damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon for each prize card they've taken. If they've taken 5 prize cards, you could swing for 150 out of nowhere. This kind seems very similar to like Kartana GX, where you could just kind of draw a prize card. Jealous Eyes might be able to just draw a prize card at the end, being able to swing for a single energy. So I think it could be cool. Will it necessarily fit in a deck day one? I'm not sure, but I think Mimikyu V is somewhat okay, more on the neutral. Necrozma V is going to be one of the worst Vs that we have in the set, kind of going with what else we got going on. I feel bad that maybe I gave Flapple V the kind of neutral face, and I gave this a sad face, but that's okay. This one can't currently evolve, so we don't have any kind of hope for its future, or that it can do more than 250 damage. I think special lasers just kind of meh. You need your opponent to have a special energy. We don't really have a great way to power up this Pokemon. Prismatic Ray is going to do 20, 20, 20. Maybe this card could be good in some kind of spread deck, just with Pokemon having 340 HP for some VMAXs. I mean, most tag team Pokemon are in the high 200s. I don't see how Prismatic Ray is going to do a lot, nor do I see how Special Lasers can be busted right now. A lot of Pokemon don't have Psychic Weakness, so I just really don't see how Special Laser is going to be amazing. Sure, you might be like, yo, Zach, a lot of Pokemon don't have Psychic Weakness. Have you seen Urshifu? Yeah, but how are you powering up Special Laser? I think Urshifu could smack this before Special Laser even got into a discussion. I don't know. We're gonna have to see how this one goes in the future. Next up for Psychic Pokemon, and I should say so far Psychic Pokemon have been like okay. This is probably the most impressive Psychic Pokemon that we got going on here. The only issue and drawback is it's a stage 2 Pokemon with a very low amount of HP. That being said, Evomancy, for each energy attached to this Pokemon, search your deck for a stage 2 Pokemon except for Orbeetle and put it onto your bench, means that Orbeetle can create some pretty funky decks in general. I like that Orbeetle can grab, with a triple acceleration, 3 different stage 2 Pokemon, getting them set up on your bench. Will we see decks that have random stage 2 Pokemon set up that kind of all work together? Maybe. Will I feature it in a video? Maybe. But Orbeetle is one of those things where I definitely need to kind of see exactly where it kind of fits, what stage 2 Pokemon exist at any given point to see if Evomancy is viable. Because currently right now it might be a little difficult to get out all these Pokemon in general, and a lot of decks such as ADPization existing means that you don't have that many turns. Sure, maybe after rotation, but right now I think Orbeetle's just kind of neutral, and it's something that might grow or become worse with age depending on how the format goes. So can't be sure, it's going to get a neutral. Next up, we got our first fighting type Pokemon of the set. It's going to be Primeape. It's probably going to be overlooked by some other fighting type Pokemon in the set. I wonder which ones those might be. But Steaming Mad Strike is basically what we're looking at this card, and it does 50 for each bench Pokemon that has any damage counters on it. Sure, you could power this Pokemon up with single strike energy, being able to hit for a decent bit of damage, but how are we getting damage on all of our benched Pokemon? I could see this maybe working with Donphan, or maybe working with Jinx, but I don't necessarily see us getting a bunch of damage on all of our Pokemon and continuously attacking with Steamin' Mad Strike. Maybe you need to play Houndoom, Donphan, Jinx, Primeape, but then it just kind of sounds like one of these single prize card decks that could do well, but again, it might not necessarily be the best deck. Sure, this deck seems like it would have a good matchup against Pikarom and Eternatus, but a lot of decks can do that as well, and a little bit more simpler. So I think this is cool. I don't necessarily think it's bad, but I'm going to give a neutral rating for now because I don't necessarily love the concept. Next up, we got Mienshao. Mienshao, we're looking at it because it's Rapid Strike, meaning you could abuse Rapid Strike energy, and you could use Spinning Whip doing 90 damage, making your opponent's active Pokemon confused, and then you could shuffle the Mienshao back into your deck. Now you might be like, yo Zach, why does shuffling Mienshao back into the deck seem any kind of good? And that's when you pop up with like a Galarian a Weezing, a Lily's Pokédoll, something that just works well in the active spot. So if there's something cool that works with Mienshao, I think this could be awesome. Very similar to Beheeyem, but it might not necessarily be as strong as Beheeyem was. And Beheeyem wasn't necessarily even the strongest card, so it's one of those things where, will Mienshao be good? Only time will tell if we get a Pokemon that we want to continuously send in the active spot. So that's why it's getting a neutral rating from me. Coming up hot, or shall I say not, we got Coalossal. We're looking at it because it has its cold cannon attack. This is very similar to what we have for Cramorant VMAX. You're flipping a coin for each energy attached to this Pokemon, although since it is a stage 2 Pokemon and not a stage 1 VMAX kind of Pokemon, I think Coalossal might not necessarily be able to see as much success as Cramorant did, and Cramorant hasn't necessarily seen that much success. Sure, as a single prize card attacker, it's got some cool things going for it, and yeah, you could go triple acceleration energy, you can go even Coalossal with Tar Generator, but is that really going to make this deck fully self-functioning? You got to play Glimwood Tangles. Glimwood Tangles, stage 2s, triple acceleration energies don't necessarily sound like a deck that's going to jam together. I mean, it might be cool for a video, it might be cool for a Sword and Shield on tournament, I'm not sure. I just don't necessarily think Coalossal is going to be that hot. That's why it's getting my frown face rating. It's just not that hot. Coming up next, we got Sandaconda, Big Sand Cannon, doing 60 damage per each fighting energy you discard from the top card of your deck, and you discard 6 cards from the top of your deck, being able to do 360 for a single energy. That could be cool. I'm not sure if it's going to see a lot of play, but I could see Sandaconda with some kind of ordinary Rod deck being okay, or Energy Accelerator, or if you have a way to stack the cards in your deck with either Rotom Phone or something else, I could see Sandaconda being relatively okay. Now, this is very similar to other Gyarados decks that we've seen. I don't know if Big Sand Cannon's going to be able to hit for the numbers that we want it to, unless you're going to deck out, but we've got to figure that out in the future. That's why I'm going to give it a neutral rating. I think it's cards like this have seen minor success in the past, but maybe Sandaconda just needs a little bit more in order to kind of get. Next up, we got Phalanx. Phalanx being using its Rapid Strike squad attack, doing 20 for each Rapid Strike Pokemon you have in play. You can have up to 6 Pokemon in play because there's no way to manipulate your bench. So you could do 120 for a single energy, which is a Rapid Strike energy. I think this would be cool on Rapid Strike deck, especially if you're playing like a water-based deck and you want to get a swing off with Phalanx. Sure, it might be a little bit worse than I think it is. Maybe it is, but my first glance, I don't think Rapid Strike Squad is necessarily the worst attack, especially for a single energy requirement. And if it can gain anything going forward, or if we get like a Sky Field for Rapid Strike Pokemon, I think it could be a lot better. So Phalanx is okay. I don't hate it. I also don't remotely love it, and I probably. Finally, we got to one of these hot cards, Single Strike Urshifu V. I think it's hot because Laser Focus, being able to build up those energies, really makes this a versatile Pokemon. So you could go second with this Pokemon, attach an energy for your turn, Laser Focus, and next turn you're ready to hit for whatever you want to hit for. Maybe you want to attack with Impact Blow. Maybe you want to evolve into a single strike Urshifu VMAX. Maybe you want to attach another energy, go Houndoom, swing with Urshifu VMAX. It's one of those things where it's pretty cool. I think Impact Blow is very similar to Zacian V, so I like that laser focus. You can get powered up very quickly. We've seen attacks such as Power Accelerator on Eternatus V do very well, so I think Single Strike Urshifu V is hot. If you thought Urshifu V was hot, have you seen Single Strike Urshifu VMAX? It kind of reminds me of Reshiram and Charizard GX from Unbroken Bonds, with its kind of mid-range attack and its gigantic Gmax 1 blow, which you could power up with the attack from the Single Strike Urshifu V that we just went over. So I mean, I think this card has built-in self-acceleration. You could accelerate energies with Houndoom. You also have the Single Strike Scroll of Scorn, so I really like how it has like an outrage base attack, the Gmax 1 blow, the beatdown, the self-acceleration from the V, the 180 attack from the V. I like this deck. It seems like very linear, but it has layers to it. A lot of people, I think, are sleeping on this card, and I'm very excited for Urshifu VMAX to be released. Definitely one of the best, if not the best cards from the sets. Before I used to think it was the trainer cards, I really like the Urshifu VMAX, and I'm very excited to play around with this card when it's released later this week. So here we got Rapid Strike Urshifu V. I did not give this card the Flames rating because it's not necessarily as good as Single Strike Urshifu V. Strafe is a good attack, but switching to the bench, doing 30 and switching is not necessarily going to be a huge attack. 100 Furious Blows is okay because you could attack with it the second turn using Rapid Strike energy to power it up. I think that this Pokemon is more or less a card that is only played to evolve into its VMAX. But it will get a generally good rating from me because it is a good V Pokemon and there are utilities to it, such as attaching a Rapid Strike energy, attacking for an early 100 Furious Blows, or necessarily getting out of the active spot. I think that could be cool too. So I think this card's generally okay, but not as good as the Single Strike option for the Single Strike Urshifu VMAX. Okay, so I'm very close to putting this. I was very close to putting this as kind of like the good Wink Face, but I am going to give this card Flames because it does take a lot and kind of steals ideas from other Pokemon. So you get the Golisopod GX Gale Thrust kind of effect. You get the Pikarom-esque kind of Tag Bolt GX snipe kind of thing. So I like that this kind of it's borrowing from a lot of competitive concepts that have seen success in the past. So Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX is cool. Will Gale Thrust be enough to knock out things? Maybe it's kind of going to be like Coalossal VMAX, where you go with a Boss Orders, Great Catcher, knock out your opponent's Pokemon. Will it be played with a Jirachi team up engine? Will it be played with an Octillery engine? Will it be played with another engine? Not sure. Gmax Rapid Flow. I like that you can snipe things. I like how Martial Arts Dojo can add a little bit of damage depending on the Pokemon you're choosing. I like that you could Boss Order and hit the active Pokemon for weakness. I like that there's Telescopic Sight. I like that you got the Rapid Strike Scroll. Like, there's a lot of cool things going on with this card. I think this card more or less is confusing, and it's not necessarily as well put together as the Single Strike variant. Does that mean that it's necessarily worse? No, I think this card is hot. I'm just not sure on the best way to run it because this card is a little bit more difficult to choose how you want to play it. We'll find out once the set's released, and of course I'm going to be testing this card to the ground to find the best way and showcase it to all of you how to play Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. Next up, we're going to start with our first Dark Pokemon in the review. We do have Golbat with its Discreet Draw ability. That's really why we're seeing this card on this list. So when you play this card from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon, you may draw 2 cards. I think, especially with this, Crobat has a very similar ability in the set. We'll go over that in a minute. With this and Scoop Up Net, you might have a decent draw engine on your hands, being able to draw multiple cards with a single prize card Pokemon. So for those of you who are balling on a budget, Golbat could be the type of card that allows you to draw some cards through your deck and run through things. I think Golbat might be a really good engine, especially in a Scoop Up Net based deck. Maybe you need to get something that allows you to draw cards. I don't know. I think Golbat's pretty cool. Definitely better than a neutral rating. Maybe not as good as a Wink rating, but I think it's going to be very good nonetheless. I'm super excited for this card and to experiment with some new engines. Very similar to the Golbat, I like that Jurassic Draw is the same ability, except you're drawing 3 more cards. So if you have a couple Golbats in play, you could evolve and draw some more cards, double dipping with the abilities. So being able to draw extra cards some turns and getting the evolution Pokemon out, then going for a scoop up net. I think that having wing attack as an attacking option is pretty cool. Having a free retreater is pretty cool. So overall, I think this might be a new engine that we introduce to some decks. Which decks are we going to introduce it to? I'm honestly not sure, but I like that both how Golbat and Crobat work really well together. They're the same evolution line, scoop up netable, and you can attack and retreat. It seems like a pretty well-balanced card, and I like that it's interesting, new, and unique. Houndoom absolutely flames. I love the ability Single Strike Roar. So once during your turn, you can search your deck for a Single Strike energy card and attach it to one of your Single Strike Pokemon. If you do, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. This is great with Single Strike Urshifu VMAX at the very least, because you could power up its gigantic attacks and add damage counters to it. Now you might be like, yo, Zach, why do you want to add damage counters to it? Well, that's for Single Strike Scroll of Scorn. I think that Houndoom can be absolutely flames in that kind of setting, because you can do extra damage, control the extra damage with Single Strike energy, so it kind of works as a dual damage modifier, being able to swing 40 damage into play. You could also use it with multiple Houndooms, doing a lot more damage than you ever thought. So it's kind of like if Rime and Charizard GX can add like an extra 20, 40, 60, 80 damage out of nowhere. You'd be like, what? That's huge. Well, that's definitely what this deck can do, and I think it's going to be super, super, super awesome. And of course, this is only going to get better and better as more Single Strike Pokemon are released into our metagame. This is a card that I might be sleeping on, and it's one of those things where you could power it up with Single Strike energies out of nowhere. Single Strike energy does count as Dark type as well, so I could see something like Cragalanche doing a decent bit of damage, or even Single Strike Crush coming out of nowhere just to knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon. If you can kind of body your opponent with Tyranitar V, it could be kind of like the new Reshiram and Charizard GX in that particular deck. So I think this card is just kind of mediocre right now because its numbers don't necessarily look like it's hitting, but maybe with something with the Single Strike Scroll of Scorn or anything else that we got going on, I could see this being an okay card, maybe even using Cragalanche to deck out your opponent out of nowhere. I don't know. It's one of those cards where I'm going to have to see how the decks really go and how the metagame goes before I give this card a full stamp of approval. That's why I'm giving it more of a neutral rating, but I might kick myself later on when I decide to add this into my decks. I might be like, yo, I was definitely wrong in my review. This card is absolutely flames. So I'll have to see how this card grows with the metagame. I'm not instantly sold on it, but I have a gut feeling I'm probably wrong. Next up, we got Morpeko. So I added Morpeko here because it does have the Gather Food attack, so you can grab an item card from your discard pile, put it into your hand. However, there are cards like Reset Stamp and Marnie that can get that card just kind of like sent all the way back. I mean, this card is basically added on here for Hangry Tackle, being able to do 110 damage. Maybe 110 damage is kind of like the new Hoopa, from bringing it from the active to the bench to do 90 damage. This could do 110. The only reason why this card's getting a thumbs down is because it leaves you with no cards left in your hands. And I feel like anything else is just kind of leaving the game to chance. So while it is fun to try to do Hangry Tackle, 110 for 1 is amazing for a single prize card attacker. Leaving yourself handless is definitely a no, and that's why this is getting... Our first metal type Pokemon of this review is not going to disappoint. We got Bronzong, which is absolutely flames. We're using it for its metal transfer ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may move a metal energy from one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon. Well, this card has incredible synergy with Cheryl that's getting printed in the set. We will go over that future in this review. Another amazing card of the set, by the way. Bronzong being able to work with any metal type deck, using Metal Saucer on the bench, bringing it to the active, moving all the damage, removing all the metal energy off a Pokemon, scoop up netting that Pokemon, using Giovanni's Exile maybe just moving the energy off a Pokemon to another Pokemon, being able to retreat, being able to do a lot of things. I think Bronzong has a lot of potential. Any Pokemon that's usually like this is usually a stage 2 Pokemon, and this one is a stage 1 Pokemon, and metal type is one of the best types that we have in this game, especially with cards such as Zacian V, Zamazenta V, Lucario Melmetal GX, Copperaja VMAX, Corviknight VMAX, you name it, we got it. Bronzong is absolutely hype, and I think it's going to see a lot of play in metal type deck. Next up, we got Aegislash with Stance Change. We're basically using this for its Stance Change ability. So once during your turn, you may change this Pokemon with an Aegislash in your hands. And that's really where this card's going to see success, is through stance change, changing up the kind of battle moves. This one is not necessarily hitting the numbers that we want. It is a stage 2, weak HP, weak attack. The ability certainly is cool, but it's not necessarily a card that we're looking for at this time. There's not an Aegislash that we necessarily want to summon out of our hands, or any reason to really do anything with that. It's not even summoning, it's kind of just like switching it. So stance change is a little bit awkward. That's why I'm going to give it a thumb. Very similar to the last Aegislash that we looked at, this one does have the stance change ability as well, so you could always swap in between those Pokemon. This one is slightly better, I think, at Gigaton Bash, doing 70 and preventing all damage done to this Pokemon by attacks from your Pokemon's VMAX, giving it a Zamazenta V vibe, but it's still not necessarily doing a lot because Zamazenta V is doing 130. It's also not a stage 2 Pokemon with only 150 HP. So I think Aegislash, both of them in the set are quite weak. The ability is entertaining at best, but it's not necessarily cutting it in a competitive environment. Next up, we got Corviknight V. Corviknight V evolving into the playable Corviknight VMAX. This is one of those other cases where I'm judging this Pokemon not only on its VMAX kind of component. So Clutch is appropriate because you could do, you could stop your opponent's Pokemon from retreating. Of course, with Switch and Escape Rope and all those good cards, they can get out of the Clutch. But in a sec, if Clutch could become Clutch, Sky Hurricane doing 190 out of nowhere can be huge, especially if you use Bronzong to move all your energy to Corviknight. I think this card is interesting, not necessarily amazing, but it does evolve into Corviknight VMAX, so let's go over that. Next up, we got Corviknight VMAX. So after looking at Corviknight V, of course, we got to look at this Pokemon, really looking at it for its attack and its ability. Obviously, that's really mostly what we are looking for at any card. Prevent all damage from your opponent's Pokemon's ability done to this Pokemon. This would be able to block Giratina from removing your energies, Galarian Zigzagoon from doing pings, and other random stuff that might hit this Corviknight VMAX. You can kind of bounce those off. G-Max Hurricane doing 240 damage, and then you can't use it again. Luckily, this Pokemon has free retreat, so you can kind of go back and forth in between Corviknight VMAXs, 240, 240, 240, 240. How are you going to move the energies in between? Well, you guessed it. Yep, we're going to add Bronzong from the same set. You could also use Cheryl from the set to heal. So I think it kind of adds a new archetype to the game, and I think Corviknight VMAX is probably the best way to run it, especially when you look at cards such as Scizor VMAX and Copperajah VMAX. Our first colorless Pokemon of this review, Lickilicky. It certainly is interesting. I like the Select instead of Select attack. So for triple acceleration energy, which you could either power this up for a triple acceleration or a welder, your opponent can choose up to 3 cards from their deck or 3 cards from their hand to discard. In terms of disruption, giving your opponent choices, make sure that they can make more informed choices. So this might be a little bit worse than the Licks Go Crazy Lickilicky, or it might be a welcomed addition to the deck. Will we see something like this work with Curse Shovel or any other discarding decks in the future? Possibly, but I think it's generally not great because you are giving your opponent the choice. Not really a card that's hitting it right for me. Next up, we got Stoutland V, which is going to be one of those cards that's going to confuse a lot of players on this rating. I think it's not necessarily great, but I'm putting it neutral because it does have some kind of uses. So you could use Double Dip Fangs if you're not necessarily able to knock out a Pokemon and draw extra prize cards. Maybe this card would work well if you're knocking out Pokemon in a Mad Party deck or something like that. Double Dip Fangs seems kind of cool from that aspect. How are you going to power it up? Well, in most cases, it's probably going to be in a Welder-based deck. In that case, I think it's just better to have a Welder-based Pokemon get the knockout originally. I don't see too many cases where this is going to be able to knock out a basic Pokemon and it's going to be worthwhile attacking than using Double Dip Fangs. So really getting Double Dip Fangs to get the knockout in the first place is really why this card is getting a neutral rating and not a poor rating, but it's going to be difficult nonetheless. It kind of reminds me of Umbreon EX back in the day, I think. It might be Umbreon GX. I think it was Umbreon EX where you get an extra prize card for knocking out your opponent's Mega Evolution Pokemon. Double Dip Fangs has a very similar kind of vibe to it, and both those cards are like mediocre-ish. So we'll have to see how this card does. I'm not necessarily too certain it's going to see a lot of success. Moving into our trainer cards, we got Bruno. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 4 cards. If any of those Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, draw 7 cards instead. This is kind of a reprint of a Cynthia card in the past, But basically the reason why it's getting such a high rating is because it does have the single strike stamp, could be good in the future, and it is a different shuffle draw supporter than what we have in our format. So maybe we'll see decks that don't necessarily run Research, Marnie, Boss. We might see Bruno get added into the mix eventually, and I think it's a pretty cool card in general. Okay, we got Camping Gear here. You can search your deck for any card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck, and your turn ends. I think that this could be cool to search out something specific. Ending your turn sucks, and the fact that Marnie and Reset Stamp are so important in our format makes Camping Gear borderline unplayable. Now, maybe this will see some kind of play in the future, if Marnie gets rotated out, or banned, or something like that, not sure. But Camping Gear seems interesting enough. That's why it's going to get a frown face rating, because I am hopeful for this card's future. But if I'm not hopeful for this card's future, and if I'm just going to go give it right now, then it's probably just a thumbs down. Kind of a terrible card released into this sets. Cheryl is absolutely hot. You can heal all damage from each of your evolution Pokemon. That's a lot of Pokemon, especially if you have more than one in play. If you do discard all energy from the Pokemon that were healed in this way, this would be a great way to move things with Bronzong around, so you could heal Pokemon for free, moving them onto a Pokemon that you're not going to discard their energy, and then redistributing your energies so you could attack again and again. We see how Malolana is very good, but I think Cheryl is kind of like a buffed version of that, and Malolana was already a playable card. You could also just kind of discard the energy. In the case of Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX, you're only discarding one energy if you're attacking with its first attack, or if you discarded all the energies, maybe you're discarding nothing. So Cheryl just seems like it's going to be absolutely amazing, considering VMAX Pokemon do count as evolution cards. Now, in a world where you're trying to heal Stage 2 Pokemon, I think this card's kind of trash, because a lot of those Stage 2 Pokemon do not have enough HP, and they're probably not going to survive a blow. But in a world where VMAX Pokemon, which they are evolution Pokemon, Cheryl does seem incredibly viable, and I think it's a great way to heal your Pokemon in this current format. So we got one of our first new reprints that we have in this set, and that's Energy Recycler. So we've already had this card in our format before, and it's seen some success. Definitely a welcome addition back into our format. It was never really a game-breaking card, but in a deck that discards a lot of energies and gets them in the discard pile, Energy Recycler is a great way to get them back. I think this card could see some niche play, and eventually it's going to be one of those cards where like, oh, do we have it in our format? Do we not have it in our format? Is it going to be at the back of the binder, or is it going to be in your deck? Only time will determine, but I think since it's seen some success in the past, and there isn't really a card like this in our current format, I could see Energy Recycler being good. I like the option. Another one of these reprinted card, Escape Rope. I'm gonna give it a Flames rating. You know how cards like Switch are just played as a 4 of in every single deck? This might actually change that up and give you a little bit of a deck building kind of flair, kind of your own opportunity to make your deck your own. Maybe you want to shift your opponent's active Pokemon. We've seen cards like this see a lot of success in tier 1 decks, such as Fion being able to shift your opponent's active Pokemon. Escape Rope does the same thing as a trainer card, and it's a little bit more flexible in other decks. Is this card absolutely the best card or the most exciting card? No, but it is going to be a format staple in a lot of decks, and it is going to be a deck building staple in a deck building toolbox. So maybe, do I need Switch? Do I need Escape Rope? Do I want to play a combination of both? One or the other? Where do we go? I think Escape Rope is certainly a cool card to have in our format. I'm certainly happy that we have it back. Back to back reprint cards, we got Experience Share. So when your active Pokemon is knocked out by damage from an attack, your opponent's Pokemon, you may move a basic energy card from that Pokemon to the Pokemon this card is attached to. This card has seen some fringe success in the past, and it's certainly something that we might see have success in the future. I could see this maybe working in an Eternatus deck, because you could put it on one of your Pokemon, grab the energy back from the Pokemon that gets knocked out, and maybe be able to surpass some of these Crushing Hammer decks. Now, is Eternatus dead or not? That's really something to determine on another end, but that's just a general idea of how Experience Share could work here. I think it's certainly cool that it doesn't block any VMAX, GX, V Pokemon from being able to use it, so a lot of cool decks might be able to utilize this card, and it's a welcome reprint back into our formats. Next up, we got Fan of Waves, Rapid Strike card. Put a special energy card attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon on the bottom of their deck. So it's kind of like a Crushing Hammer, except you don't need to flip for it, and it automatically does it. It does put it at the bottom of their deck, but that could be better, especially if they're drawing from the bottom of their deck or something like that. I don't know. There's ways where I think this card is very good. Special energies are very much played. Is it going to be something that's going to see a lot of play? I'm not entirely sure. We got to figure out exactly what's going on with special energies, and if even putting them at the bottom of a deck matters. Like, let's say if you're playing against an Urshifu VMAX deck, I don't think Fan of Waves is necessarily going to do a lot against that deck, because they could just Houndoom it back right away. So that's why this card is not getting a Flames rating, but I do think it is going to be really good, especially in some pesky decks that might already play Crushing Hammer. So watch out for Fan of Waves, especially when you're playing against it. And it's searchable by decks like Octillery, so in the future, as more and more decks might play Octillery-based engines, you could always tech a few copies of Fan of Waves. This card is closer to being Flames than not, but we're just going to give it a wink face for now, because I'm not certain if it's going to see a lot of play in a lot of decks. Next up, we got Karina's Focus, so you can draw cards until you have 6 cards in your hands. It's a rapid strike card, meaning it's searchable by Octillery. That's probably why this card gets such a high rating. I like that it's definitely kind of a new playable supporter that we have. So instead of just playing Research, Marnie, and Boss all the time, maybe you could see Karina's Focus going into the mix. Maybe there with some Bruno, changing it up depending on which deck you're running. So I like that this is working well for rapid strike decks. I like that you could play it in other decks. I like that we just kind of have a straight up draw card that could be really hot. I don't know, it's not necessarily the best card, it's not the worst card, it's an average supporter, but it does fill in a niche that we do not have in our current standard format, and we've kind of been in a supporter drought for different playable supporters. Of course, Research and Marnie and Boss are some of the most powerful supporters we've ever seen printed, but we haven't necessarily had anything new, so I like that Karina's Focus changes up a little bit, and maybe she'll be rollerblading into some of your decks real soon. Yo, we got Level Ball here. You can search your deck for a Pokemon with 90 HP or less. It's another one of these reprint cards that we've seen in the set, and I don't think Level Ball is necessarily going to disappoint. Being able to search out Pokemon in, let's say, a Mad Party deck, or even if you're playing Eternatus, maybe you want to search out a bunch of Pokemon just in general. Anything with 90 HP or less, this is definitely going to be consideration or necessary. It's going to be added into the deck right away. So in most single prize card decks, Level Ball is going to be a super welcome addition, and it might make those decks a little bit more of contenders to these huge VMAX deck Pokemon and stuff like that. So I like that Level Ball can be really kind of beneficial to our current standard formats. Just kind of seems to be a nice option that we haven't had in a while, and I mean, I certainly welcome it. It's absolutely awesome. Next up here, we got Phoebe. So during this turn, damage done from Pokemon VMAX's attacks isn't affected by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. I'm not giving this a Flames because you do need to be a VMAX, but this would allow you to get through random things such as Decidueye's ability that would stop VMAX Pokemon from attacking. So if you're playing a VMAX deck and you are worried about random things such as Decigoons and other Pokemon that you might not necessarily be able to get through, like Altaria, I do think that this could be a welcome addition into your deck, and I do like that it does have that option. So it might not necessarily be the best card to play in every single deck, but at least as a deck builder, it does give you that option. So that's why I'm going to give it the winky smile face, because I think it's certainly a good card to add into your deck. Is it the best card? No, but it is a welcomed addition to any deck, and it can be the best card if you really need it to be the best card. So that's where I'm going to leave that card. The first of the 2 scrolls that we're going to look at this video, we got Rapid Strike Scroll of Swirls. So you get attached to a Rapid Strike Pokemon and go 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. This is a great way to power up a Pokemon, or you could power it up quickly with a Rapid Strike Energy. Matchless Maelstrom is a fairly decent attack. And I like the option, and it works especially well with the Urshifu VMAX of the Rapid Strike, of course, being able to snipe with the 120, 120, building up some damage with Matchless Maelstrom, and then just kind of going forward from there, getting those OHKOs where necessary. I currently don't really have this, it goes in and out of my list, so I'm not sure if it's something that I want to see, but maybe as the future grows, this card is just going to be an absolute staple in some Rapid Strike decks. Maybe this card's going to fall to obscurity, but I do think it's a decent option that we could add to our kind of attacking threshold in a Rapid Strike deck. So I think this card's cool, not necessarily Flames, because I don't necessarily think every version of the deck or even the deck it might just not run it, but every single list might run it. We're still uncertain with how the Rapid Strike Urshifu is going to look like, or at least I am. Next up, we got the Rapid Strike Style Mustard. So you can only play this card when it's the last card in your hand, very similar to Maxis and Archies that we've seen in the past. So you can grab a Rapid Strike Pokemon from your discard pile and put it onto your bench, and if you do, draw 5 cards. So you could play this with a bunch of cards to limit the amount of cards that you have in your hand, or discard cards that you have in your hand, so you could summon a Rapid Strike Pokemon. Pokemon that you might want to summon would be Octillery, and maybe we'll see some other Pokemon in the future. Like most cards that have this, or that kind of have this kind of effect, it's only going to be better once we get more and more Rapid Strike Pokemon. And I think that currently right now we have a few that we might want to summon into play, so it might be a worthwhile inclusion. Definitely one of those new kind of supporters, and very interesting from this set. It's a unique card to our current metagame, so I'm very excited that we have Rapid Strike Style Mustard coming out this week. Next up, we got Single Strike Scroll of Scorn. So you could attach it to a single strike Pokemon, and for a single fighting energy, you could get Furious Anger. So better than a Reshiram and Charizard GX's Outrage, because it's only 1 energy. You could accelerate this damage output with your Houndoom. You could do extra damage with your single strike energy. So I think this card's going to be absolutely broken in any single strike deck, where might be confusion if we're going to play the Rapid Strike Scroll in Rapid Strike decks. I don't think there's going to be any confusion. We're probably playing Single Strike Scroll in single strike decks just because Furious Anger is such a viable attack. If they're not one-shotting you, you're probably one-shotting them back, and this might turn Urshifu VMAX's Dragapult matchup from unfavorable to extremely favorable. So we got to really test this card. I think this card is absolutely fire. No pun intended, because I did give it a Flames rating, but I think Furious Anger does add a very strong element of Reshiram and Charizard GX-ism to any single deck, so I'm very excited to add this into my single strike decks once it's released later this week. Next up, we got our other Mustard card from this set. We got Single Strike Style Mustard. The only difference is this one's working for Single Strike Pokemon, and you are searching your deck. So this would be a great way to summon that Emboar that we looked at much earlier on in this review. I think that Single Strike Mustard seems quite powerful if you ask me. I'm super hyped for this card to get released, and Emboar is certainly a card that I'm looking at when it comes to single strike Pokemon I want to send into play. Maybe I want to send Houndoom into play. And really, I'm more excited for other single strike Pokemon to get released in the future, other stage 1, stage 2s, hard Pokemon to get out into play, or maybe they have some other ways that you need to kind of deal with them. I think that Single Strike Mustard would be a really good way to get those Pokemon into play, build some decks around it, and again, being able to discard cards from your hand, playing cards that you could just kind of let go, such as Energy Spinner, Level Ball, Quick Ball, are all great ways to summon this card into play. These cards have already spiritually seen success in the past with Maxis and Archies, so I'm sure we're going to see some success in the future with these Single Strike and Rapid Strike Mustard cards. So we kind of got the meme card of the set, and that is Swordward and Shieldburts. I mean, I want to know where they get their haircuts from, because I mean, I could certainly use one. I've been doing my own pandemic haircuts, hence why I'm wearing the hats. Choosing a trainer card from your discard pile, it could be a good way to get it back. Otherwise, if your opponent's like, nah, you don't get that card in your hand, this card is literally like a Hop. So I mean, I guess it's technically better than Hop, but at least Hop is drawing the 3 cards every single time, so this might be worse than Hop. I'm honestly not sure, but this card's probably not going to see any viable play. Sure, you might see it on a meme stream, or your favorite streamer might be like, LMAO, I'm going to put Swordward and Shieldbird into my deck if this gets 1,000 likes on Twitter. I don't necessarily think it's going to be a super viable card. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments below if I'm missing anything about this card. I just don't think it's necessarily that great. This is a card that I'm not sure how to even rate. Tool Jammer, so as long as the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot, Pokemon tools attached to your opponent's active Pokemon have no effect except for Tool Jammer. So in a world where there's something such as Giant Bomb, maybe you want to attack it with your Tool Jammer Pokemon. In that case, I'm not sure why you wouldn't play Tool Scrapper, or another way to get rid of a Pokemon tool. Well, it's, I guess, the only cases that you could use it over and over again. And if that Pokemon just stays there, maybe it's a good way to just get rid of tools being in play, or just kind of nullifying tools in play. Maybe your opponent's Air Balloon Pokemon's going to get trapped. So I could see this maybe seeing success in a control deck. There's a lot of what ifs when it comes to this card. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, but it doesn't necessarily seem bad at all to me. Let me know what you think about this card. This is honestly a card that I'm kind of scratching my head on, and that's why it's getting a neutral rating, but it might be worse, it might be better. I'm honestly not sure. Okay, so we got Tower of Darkness, and it's going to be the first of the 2 towers that we have in the set. So once during each player's turn, they may draw 2 cards. In order to use that effect, they got to pitch a single strike card from their hand. That could be a single strike energy, a single strike trainer, or a single strike Pokemon. This card's also printed with single strike, so it's a very good draw engine for single strike decks, and it adds a stadium to bump your opponent's other pesky stadiums that they might have in play. I think it's pretty cool. I wouldn't necessarily give it a Flames rating because I'm not sure if it's going to see that much play, but right now I think it's going to be really cool. It kind of gives me vibes of Heat Factory, Prism Star, Scorched Earth, and I know that I personally played those to much success, so I'm very excited for Tower of Darkness, but I don't necessarily think it's going to get a Flames rating day 1 from me. Next up, we got the second tower, and it's Tower of Waters. The retreat cost of each Rapid Strike Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponent's, is double colorless less. So kind of like a permanent air balloon in play, and I think Tower of Waters seems pretty cool if you ask me. If you're playing a Rapid Strike deck that needs to retreat, this might be a great way, and it definitely has some synergy with Rapid Strike Urshifu VMAX. So will it see a lot of play? I'm not sure. It is searchable by Octillery, so I think that's pretty cool if you ask me. I gotta see exactly how this one's going to play out. In terms of supporter cards or stadium cards, it is quite viable. I don't see it being bad. I'd give it might be closer to a neutral rating, in between a neutral and a smiley wink face, if you wanted to really give it a huge thing, but it does seem like it is going to be playable and played in the future. Here we go, we got the last trainer card that we got in the set, and we are almost done the set review, peeps. Just in case you were like, yo Zach, how much longer is this going to take? We're almost there. We got Urn of Vitality, a single strike card. You can shuffle up to 2 single strike energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. I totally read this the first time and read it as 2 single strike cards from your discard pile into your deck. In that case, it would have been Flames. Single strike energy cards are still very valuable, and especially if you're discarding them with the effect of like Urshifu VMAX's attack and you're discarding those energies, you probably want to get them back, or if you're using Tower of Darkness to discard them, you probably want to get them back. They're probably going to end up in the discard pile either way, maybe from research or other ways, so Urn of Vitality is very good in a single strike deck. Otherwise, it's kind of a niche card, and I don't think it's going to be absolutely Flames. It's just going to get kind of, it's too niche to get a Flames, but it is very good in some specific situations, so I am going to give it a winky smile face. Okay, so we got our first out of our 2 energy cards that we have in this set, Rapid Strike Energy. So as long as it's attached to a Pokemon that is Rapid Strike, you can only attach to Rapid Strike Pokemon. It's one of those things where it's not like a Speed Lightning Energy where it counts as a colorless attached to another Pokemon, or it counts as something attached to another Pokemon. This Pokemon, it cannot just be attached, and if it gets attached to anything that's not a Rapid Strike Pokemon, you got to discard that card. It does provide 2 energies of any combination of water and fighting energies. Great way to power up your Rapid Strike Pokemon. In most cases, most Rapid Strike Pokemon do take water and fighting energies, one or the other, so I think this is a great way to power up your Pokemon extremely fast, and doing those attacks with less energies required. So I think this card's absolutely Flames, especially if you're playing a Rapid Strike deck. I know it's a little bit niche compared, especially if we go with my kind of ruling for Urn of Vitality. I think Rapid Strike's more of a broad spectrum than we think, and as more and more Rapid Strike Pokemon get printed, I think Rapid Strike energy is just going to grow and grow in popularity. Next up, we got Single Strike Energy, and this is the last card of our set review, peeps. Thanks so much for hanging on. I know it's been a bit of a long one, but hopefully I've kept you entertained with my kind of with all my banter and all that good stuff. Same thing as Rapid Strike Energy. You can only attach it to a single strike Pokemon. If it's attached to anything that's not a single strike Pokemon, pitch this card goodbye. It's as long as it's attached to a Pokemon, it provides fighting and dark energy, but only provides 1 at a time, and it does an extra 20 damage, so it's only worth 1 energy, but it's worth 20 extra damage. Really great way to grab this out and play is with Houndoom. It works specifically well with Urn of Vitality, so I think that that's really awesome. And I mean, it does have the single strike stamp, so you could discard it with Tower of Darkness. I think that this card just doing extra damage. Most cards that are damage modifiers tend to be good. Even Vitality Band when it only hits 10 damage. So if you're playing a single strike deck, I don't see why you would not consider this card. I think it's absolutely amazing. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, but I think this is literally one of the best energy cards that we have in the game. Playing it in any fighting or dark single strike deck, and as more and more single strike Pokemon get printed, this card's only going to grow better with. There we have it, peeps. So we made it through the entire set review of cards that are viable. If you check the description below, I also included cards that I think are worthwhile to pick up day 1 for the set. That might change as the set grows. Maybe there's gonna be some cards that I miss, but these cards seem to be all the viable cards and non-fluff cards in the set. So maybe I missed something, maybe I didn't. Maybe you're like, yo, this card's actually really good here, or that card's actually terrible, Zach. Why'd you rate it so highly? I'd love to hear your comments below. If you haven't already consider becoming a channel member. You can click join on desktop version of YouTube, and you can help support the channel. There's multiple ways to help support me. Just by watching the videos is amazing, but do consider becoming a channel member. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. And beyond that, thank you so much for watching and all the support lately. All of you have been amazing. This should be a great week for Battle Styles content, and I mean, I'm super excited for it. So that being said, I do know I have to edit this video. It took me like I don't even want to, this video took me like 3 hours to make. Made my own overlay myself from scratch. I'm not an editor of any kind, so took me a lot of effort, and I really hope that you all enjoyed this new style of video. That being said, I'm gonna go edit in iMovie, so I will catch up with all of y'all later. Happy release week, everyone, and have yourself a wonderful day, evening, night, wherever you are in the world. Peace out. I want to give a quick shout out to everyone who's been extremely helpful for all my support, and especially my YouTube members, everyone who's joined on Zacklessage PTCG by clicking join on desktop and then supporting my channel financially. You don't have to, but you did, and I really appreciate it. So shout out to Ali Plays Pokemon, Zenon TCG, Gabriel Smart, Slavin Tizik, Justin C, Josh Sutherland, and everyone else who's been watching my videos too. If you want to support the channel, you become a member today just by clicking join on YouTube, usually on desktop. But again, I appreciate everything. You don't have to, but everyone who did, I truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you haven't already, it'd mean the world to me if you could subscribe to help support me as a content creator. Thanks again, and have yourself a great one.